Whenever a field of one class stores reference of object of another class, we call it as object relation. Let us simplify the same. For example, we have class 1 and class 2 individually. Each class has its own set of fields. Now, assume the reference variable of class 2 type is stored as a field of the class 1. So the class 1 has a field that contains reference to object of class 2 type. So in this case, class 1 and class 2 have relationship, right? So what kind of relationship it is? It is not a parent-child relationship because it is just about storing a reference. So in this case, we call it as object relation because an object of class 1 stores a field and that field refers to an object of another class. Let us assume a real-time scenario. Suppose there is a college. It has a class called student and a student belongs to any one branch. Here the branch refers to the course that is taken by the student. For example, there is a student called Scott and he studies computer science. So here there is an object of branch class that represents computer science branch. And an object of student class represents a single student. So much like other fields in the student class such as student roll number, name, etc., the student class has a field called branch. It is of which type? Branch type. And this field called branch stores a reference to object of branch class. So in this case, this variable branch plays a dual role. In case if you observe the concept from the student class point of view, the branch is the field here. In case if you observe the concept from the branch class point of view, the branch is the reference variable. So it is the reference variable, at the same time it is the field. It is the reference variable that contains reference to an object of branch class. And as it is declared inside the student class, it is the field of the student class. So this type of referencing fields causes object relations. So in the real world applications, these kind of situations are very common. That is, first you have an object and that object has a field that refers to another object of a different class. For example, an employee works in a department. So here all the department details are represented as an object of department class and an employee is represented as employee class. So in the employee class, we have a field, for example DEPT. That reference variable DEPT stores reference to an object of department class object. Like this, in the real world applications, you will find plenty of examples where one object has reference to other object. That is through a field. And you may have multiple fields in the same class. That means one object has multiple fields that refers to multiple objects. For example, in the same student class, assume we have another field and that field contains a reference to address type of object that contains address details of the specific student. Currently, let me demonstrate one-to-one relation. Then we will try to demonstrate one-to-many and many-to-one as well. Let's demonstrate one-to-one relationship first. So we have a console application. And then we are adding a class library. And then adding the reference of the class library to the console application. Now, let's rename the class1.cs file as student.cs. Now, I am writing the code in the student.cs file of class library1. Here the namespace is college and we have a class called student. It can have various fields or properties such as roll number, name, email, etc. Actually, you can do this example by using public fields or public properties. Anyways, as properties are preferred in real-world applications, I am using properties instead of plain fields. And if you want to add any validation logic, you can write full code for get and set accessors. So it has various details as properties such as roll number, name, and email. So if you create an object for the student class, that object contains details about the particular student. That means an object of the student class represents one single individual student. Let me add another class called branch in the same class library. So right click on the class library, add new item. Here I am adding a class and name of the file is branch.cs. Here also the namespace name is college. And we have a public class called branch. And it contains the branch details of a specific branch. Here the branch means the department of the course, for example, computer science or electronics, etc. So each branch has a specific number of semesters. So if you create an object for the branch class, it represents a specific branch such as electronics or medical sciences, etc. And every student must belong to any one branch, right? So how do you reference that? In the student class, we can have a field or property that act as a reference variable that contains reference of object of the branch class. So simply it can be branch. Sorry, it was typo. It's college. So here also it's the same. So here the variable called branch is the reference variable cum property of the student class. The compiler generates a private field called _branch behind the scenes. And that _branch contains a reference to object of branch class. And it means that one student can have only one branch. If the same student should belong to multiple branches, then we require to go for list of branch. Anyways, that comes under another category of relation. So currently, we are assuming the requirement as one student should belong to only one branch, not more than that. So overall, in one class, we are creating the reference variable of another class as a property or field. So this is the point of object relation. Now in the main method, let me create an object of the student class and assign the reference of object of branch class in this particular property. So this variable branch is the property cum reference variable. It is the reference variable of branch type. At the same time, it is the property of the student class. So I am coming back to the console application, that is a program.cs file. And let us import the namespace called college. So in the main method, we are going to create an object for the student class. So it contains some details of roll number, name and email. And let us create an object of branch class. And assume we have a branch called computer science. And suppose we have 8 semesters. Now, in the student class object, we have a property that is branch that should contain the reference to this particular object of the branch class. So it is as simple as one-to-one relationship. So in the branch property, we assign the reference to the branch object that is created above. That's it. We have achieved one-to-one relation. So it is as simple as the particular field behind this property stores reference to an object of the branch class. In other words, student refers to branch. So as far as the branch object is concerned, it don't have relation to the student, but student has relation to the branch. That means every student belongs to any one branch. The same code can be written in another way. That is, instead of creating the object above, we can directly create the same object here itself. And directly we can store the address of object of branch class in this particular property. And later we can initialize the same details by writing student.branch every time. And let us display the same values. So we are displaying the roll number, student name and other details. So if you write like student.branch, see, that means we are accessing the branch property that is already created in the student class. So in the branch property, since it is of branch type, we can access all the properties of the branch class, that is branch name and a number of semesters. So that's why we are writing student.branch.branch name. And in the same way, number of semesters too. At your practice time, you can try to read this data from the keyboard by using readline statement. So there is a student with this roll number and name, and he is studying the computer science engineering, and his course has 8 semesters. This is the meaningful data that we are storing by using one-to-one relationship. So overall we can say one student object refers to only one branch object through this property. Here the branch class itself is acting as a data type. So every class, structure, interface and enumeration are the data types, so they can be used instead of regular primitive types such as int or string. At the same time, don't think that the branch object will be stored as a part of the student object. So in the memory, student object is separate and branch object is separate. And only the thing is, branch object reference will be stored through this reference variable. This is about one-to-one relationship though. But what about one-to-many relationship? That means, imagine we have list of examination. That means one student can write multiple examinations. In this case, an object of list class stores references to multiple objects. In the previous lecture itself, we have seen collection of objects. So only the point is that we are storing the collection of object reference as a property or field inside another class instead of just a local variable. So the scenario is that one student may contain multiple examinations, or in the e-commerce application, one order may contain multiple products. So at the same time, you can order multiple products in the online shopping application. These are all examples of one-to-many relationship, where one object of student class has reference to multiple objects of examination class. Let me demonstrate this in another console application. So first we are creating a console application that is one-to-many example, and we are adding the class library Now, let us rename the class1.cs file as student.cs. So I am writing the code in the student.cs file of class library 1. Here also the namespace name is college. It has properties that contains details about the particular student, just like the previous example. Now we need another class that represents an examination. So let me add a new file in the class library 1 project. So right click on the class library 1, add new item, and then specify the file name as examination.cs. So now the class library 1 has two files, that is student.cs and examination.cs. I am writing the code in the examination.cs file of class library 1. Namespace name is college, and make this class as a public class so that it can be accessible in the console application project, which is the different assembly. So an object of the examination class represents an examination that is attempted by the student. So it includes the examination name, month and year of examination, and also maximum marks of the particular examination, and secured marks of the examination by the particular student. So basically one student can attempt multiple examinations. So instead of storing a single reference variable in the student class, we are going to store the reference variable to list of examination. Since we are using list class, we need the namespace system.collections.generic. So we are specifying the data type as a list of examination but not a single examination. So this reference variable cum property stores reference of collection of object, and that contains references to multiple examination objects as elements. So this is the code of the student class, and this is the code of the examination class. Now come back to the program.cs file. As usual, create an object of the student class. Of course, the college namespace must be imported. And fill the details in the normal properties. Now here is the point. We have a property cum reference variable, that is examinations. It is not of examination class type, but it is the list of examination. So we require to create an object of list class and assign its reference into the property reference variable, that is examinations. So we can perform adding removing process against this particular property. For example, this particular student attempts 3 examinations. So we can call add and other related methods by using examinations property. Suppose we are adding a new element of examination object and examination name and then other details. For example, he attempted module test 1 in the month of May and some year. So these are the details about the particular examination that is attempted by the student. So this object of examination class will be stored as an element in the collection called examinations. Like this, we can repeat the same process for multiple examinations. Alternatively, at your practice time, you can read all these information from the keyboard, asking the user, do you want to continue or not? So as long as the user says continue, you can keep on creating the objects of examination class and store its references in the examinations collection. So we have second test. For example, it is in the July. And there is some final test at the March 2024. So overall the impact is that one object of student class has relation to multiple objects of examination class. That is represented as list of examination. So this is one to many because one student has relation to multiple examination objects. And let us display the same output. We are accessing the student.roll number, student.name, etc. And we have multiple objects of examination class, right? So for that case, we require for each loop. Here the collection variable is student.examinations, which is of a list of examination type as declared here. So here the data type of each object will be examination type. Since the collection is a list of examination, each element will be of type examination. And we are able to access all the properties of examination class as whatever we declared here through this particular reference variable called exam. So this reference variable exam contains reference to the first object for the first time, but same contains reference to the second object next time, and so on. So each time we are accessing the examination name of the specific examination object and also other details. And I would like to print year-month. Secured marks / maximum marks. So this is how do you create one-to-many relationship, where one student contains relation to multiple objects of examination class. And we also have many-to-one relationship, whereas multiple objects of the same class references only one object of another class. For example, in an organization, multiple employees work under same department. For example, we have an accounting department And under that accounting department, we have 3 employees called Scott, Allen, and Jones. So in this case, there is only one department, that is accounting department. So this object of department class represents accounting department. And there are 3 objects that represent Scott, Allen, and Jones. Scott belongs to accounting department. So he has a field or property of department type that contains reference to object of department class. In the same way, the second employee called Allen also has another field or property that contains reference to the same object. And even in case of Jones object also. So multiple objects of employee class has relation to only one object of department class. This is the case of many-to-one relationship. Actually, many-to-one relationship is the opposite of one-to-one relationship. So all the scenarios applicable for one-to-many can be reversed. So then you will find many-to-one relationship. For example, there are multiple reviews done by the same user. So multiple objects of review class has relation to only one object of user class. So let me demonstrate this many-to-one relationship in the program. Let me take the case of multiple employees of same department. Creating a console application as usual. Actually, we also have many-to-many relationship, but as far as the real-world applications are concerned, it is enough to use one-to-one, one-to-many, and many-to-one relationships. I am going to add the class library to the same solution and adding the reference of the class library in the console application and rename the class1.cs file of class library1 as employee.cs. So now I am writing the code in employee.cs file of class library1. Suppose the namespace name is company, and here I am representing the details of a single employee. One employee has only one name and one ID. So these are the details about a single employee. Now I am going to create another class called a department in order to represent a single department. So in the same class library, I am going to add the file called department.cs file. So add new item, department.cs, and click on add button. So now we have two files in the same class library, that is employee.cs and department.cs. I am writing the code in department.cs file of the class library1. So in the real world, we may have multiple departments, but here we are assuming only one department, that is accounting department, for example. Every department has unique number that we call it as ID. So these are the details about a specific department. And the namespace name is company. So how will we reference the department from the employee? One employee contains reference to only one department, right? Much like one-to-one relationship. So in the employee class, we have a property of department type, and suppose the name of the property can be anything, for example, DPT. So this property cum reference variable stores reference to only one object of department class. So as of this code, this is just like one-to-one relationship. But when it comes to program.cs file, as we are creating multiple objects of employee class, that turns out to be many-to-one relationship. Suppose we have 3 employees working under same department. Don't forget to import the namespace. So we have 3 employees and all these employees should work under same department. So let me create the department object first. And I'm initializing the properties by using object initializer every time. Alternatively, you can also initialize the same by using parameterized constructors as I have demonstrated in the previous sections. So we have 3 employees and only one department. So each employee can work under only one department. So that's why in the employee class, we have only one reference variable that can contain reference to only one object. So it is as simple as employee 1 has a department reference variable and that contains reference to the department object. Similarly, in the reference variable called DEPT of second employee also, we stored the reference of the same object, and even in case of third employee also. So this first employee works under which department? It is identified through this property, that is DEPT, and that refers to the department object which is created above. Even the second employee works under which department? The same department object. And third employee also works under same department. So this is many-to-one relationship. That is, many employees has relation to only one department object. In case if each employee belong to individual departments, then it is called as one-to-one relationship only. I am displaying the details of first employee. And in order to access the department details, we can write like dpt.department ID, because dpt is the property cum reference variable and that refers to an object of department class, so that we are able to access all the properties of department type. So that's why we are writing dpt.department name. At your practice time, a challenge for you, that is, you can make these employees as a collection and you can accept all details from the keyboard as long as the user says yes to continue. And I'm using \n just for a blank line. So overall, if you can run this application, see, we have multiple employees that comes under same department. This is how do you make various types of relationship among objects. So in order to summarize, if you create a reference variable of one class in another class, that is called one-to-one. If you create a list type of reference variable in another class, it is called as one-to-many. You just follow one-to-one related code only as per the class, but you assign the reference of same object reference into multiple objects of another class, then it is called as many-to-one relationship. So these are all various practices of various types of relations. And at your practice time, you can try to implement either of these scenarios. For example, I told an example of e-commerce application. I told an example of user reviews, etc. So try to implement on your own, then you will apply all these things practically.